Stomping grounds. No matter the variation you get, staying away from groups of people and being the other side of the map from where the rhinos are is critical to winning on this map. If you get the variant with its blizzard fans on the side, use the bottom fence to boost you to the other side for a quick escape. In order to do this, you just jump into the gust and it'll blow you forwards. While you should stay on the edges of the map, don't neglect the center either. Use it as a way to get the other side or just get on it when the rhinos are going to the edges. Do make sure to pan your camera constantly because it is critical to know where the rhinos are at all times. You can tell a rhino is about to do its heavy dash attack when its face turns red. If you see one heading your way, dive to the sides so it doesn't hit you. If you get the variation with the disc, just stay on the disc and the rhino doesn't do its dash attack. At least it doesn't do it as of August 2022. And don't get me started on the one rhino variant, just baby mode. Be attentive and stay away from groups of people because the rhino loves to target groups of people. Big shots, the easiest survival map in the entire video game. If you get the 3 cannon variant, just go to the sides and stand in between 2 cannons and that's literally it. However, if you get bigger shots, aka the 5 cannon variation, moving to the back of the seesaw to see when the 2 upper cannons fire isn't a bad idea. However, don't stay there for too long. Really standing in between 2 cannons is all you need to do, but the top cannon is positioned to cover the blind spot of the 2 cannons. So keep an eye out on the top cannon and move to the sides to avoid the projectiles. In general, just don't make any massive big movements and only move to the other side when you are able to. Block party. Regular block party can be summed up in this one sentence. Go to one side, then the other, and rinse and repeat. Let's talk about parkour party instead. You don't actually have to take the staircase that appears on the side at the beginning of the game. You won't die if you don't take them. However, if you do choose to take them, which I recommend, parkouring onto the incoming blocks by jump diving is the way to go. You'll be surprised by how far you can parkour. And while on the staircase, I recommend you sprint jump or run while jumping because you could get caught on an edge or a divot and lose all the momentum. But running is something you can do as well, but I just recommend sliding on the side of caution. Towards the final few seconds, you'll be forced to go on a staircase and you could get 2 possible variations. One where you have to jump to another block and if you fall down, you'll die. Or another variant where you'll eventually drop down back to the platform and another staircase will be coming your way. If you see a small gap on the sides, jump to it and then jump back on the staircase. And if you see some smaller blocks, you could just jump to it instead of jump diving. You'll know what jumps you can make with practice and experience. Rollout. If you get the fruit cannon variant, use the walls as a shield from the fruit and just keep moving from one ring to another. Never really stop moving and especially don't stop near the edges because people will grab and try to shove you into the slime. Speaking of that, while difficult to do, it's still quite possible to do as of season 1 free-for-all. Make sure the back is facing the gap, you then grab onto them and let go when the gap is approaching them. The reason this works is because when you get grabbed, your character sort of disconnects from the platform. Shoving people has been significantly nerfed, so I wouldn't rely on this too much. The Swiveller, the second easiest map in the video game. Really, there's only 2 ways of passing a jump rope. You either jump over the rope when it's past the 4 o'clock range, or another way that I don't see people do enough is if the jump rope is at the very bottom, just run backwards for a second and move forwards once the rope has passed. If you go underneath a jump rope, you may need to jump over the next one and vice versa. And as for the hammers on the platform, what I do is I follow the direction in which the hammer is heading towards, or I follow the flow of the hammer. Snowball survival. This map has 3 variants. The regular variant where there's ice tiles in the center and on the edges, save center where there's no tiles in the center, and finally the more tiles variant where every other tile is an ice tile. No matter the variation, staying near the edges of the bowl and moving along the edges is the best thing you can do. It's recommended that you jump dive over ice tiles so that you don't hit them and you can preserve the tiles for even longer. Keep an eye out for when the snowballs clank each other and only move to the center when it's safe to do so. Running on the ice tiles is a great way to get other people killed, but it can also really backfire on you, so be careful when doing this. Jump club. Regardless of what variation you get, at the start you run away from the bar, and as the bar starts to pick up speed, you run towards it and jump over it. Switch between running away from the bar and running towards it, especially during the 2 and 3 bar variation. For the 3 bar variation, I sometimes will pan my camera to the top left and jump so I know where all the 3 bars are at any given time. As much as it pains me to say this, grabbing on this map is the meta, and avoiding them can be really difficult. I would say to sprint jump or run while jumping, so it just makes you a harder target to grab. And if anything, grab them quickly and let go when the bars approach them so you can get them out instead. Is it dirty? Of course, but learning to defend yourself is a necessity these days. While yes, Hexagon and Thin Ice are finale maps and they're known as such, in certain shows like Survival Squads, for example, they can appear as survival maps. Hexagon. While it may seem impossible, playing slow is definitely the best way to play this map. Since everyone is running around, people don't typically use all the tiles surrounding them. If you play slow, you can take advantage of that fact and just use all the tiles around you. While running, people don't typically check behind them. They usually leave plenty of tiles, so don't neglect to check behind you. While it may seem counterintuitive, if you learn how to slow dive on a small island, you can make a small island outlast longer than a big island with tons of people. In order to slow dive, you jump and then slightly push your joystick forwards and then dive. The mistakes that people will make at first is that they will flick their joysticks all the way forwards and then dive on 2 tiles. While you're in midair, just slightly flick your control stick forwards and then dive. It will take you some time to get used to slow diving, but when you do learn it, you will be able to optimize and use those tiles to their fullest potential. Try running while jumping to save tiles for when you need to turn back around. Cutting people off in this map is an essential skill that everyone should learn. If you see someone on the edge, go near them and cut the tiles in front of them and leave them stranded. I will say this, never underestimate how far you can jump dive. You can jump dive over a 2 tile gap. Learn to use all the tiles around you and just don't move in a straight line. Turn back around, zigzag around the tiles, and just even U-turn. So you could just go forwards, do a U-turn, use all the tiles behind you, and just go back to where you were originally. Just move around and just be unpredictable. Learning to use all the tiles around you and just freestyle is something that will take you time and practice, but once you get it down, you will massively improve on Hexagon. While you may think it's great that you have one layer all to yourself and everyone is just 1 or 2 layers below you, however, I think that's the exact opposite, because since you're at 1 layer above everyone and everyone just below you with all the tiles, you're actually put in a terrible position unless you get really lucky, because when you have to drop down eventually, you're just going to be put in a bad spot. So I would say just inspect all the tiles below you, and if you see that you're in a bad spot, just drop down immediately. Basically, just don't be too greedy and know when to give up and just go down. Thin ice. As we see as one free for all, you can still spam jump on 1 tile. You essentially do this by staying on 1 tile and pressing your jump button really fast. With this technique, you can jump on 1 tile over 4 to 5 times before it breaks. What I recommend you do instead of running is to sprint jump or run while jumping to avoid wasting tiles. Standing near the edges of the tiles has advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantages is since that you're standing near the edges, people will see you as a target and try to shove you into the slime. And the 2 advantages to staying near the edges is that 1, people don't want to go to the edges and be targeted, and the second one is because since the edges don't have as much tiles at the center, people just avoid it and just stay at the center. So with this information, I will say that you should go to the edges and just spam jump and just in general be there, but just keep an eye out and make sure people aren't targeting you. And just don't stay there for too long, but just don't neglect the edges either. Like with Hexagon, I recommend you zigzag around, check behind you, and just generally don't underestimate how far you can jump dive. If anything, it's much easier to do this type of tech in this map rather than a Hexagon. Really be unorthodox and just don't move in a straight line. Spam jumping on a small island all by yourself is much better than just running around on a big island with everyone.